Hi there, folks. My name is Chris Lauer. I'm the director at Poldos & Company in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. We're an art co-op, nonprofit space supporting low-income artists, and I'm going to bring you through a process called reductive block printing. Now, block printing is essentially stamp making. You're creating your own stamps to create a series of images that are all in one set. In this case, we're using a method called reductive block printing, and it's a lino cut, which means using a linoleum block instead of a wood block. But the reductive part means that we're going to be able to create a multiple color image with only one block. Cut that down over a series of prints to develop a multiple color image. Now, in this video, I didn't start recording until a little bit late, so I've already carved the first block. And you notice as I ink this up, I'm using a brayer, and a brayer helps us lay out a really nice even pad of ink, and then I can roll that right over the surface of my block, which takes that ink, and I've chosen a really bright yellow in this case, to roll right over only the raised parts. So the things that I did not carve away are now covered with ink. You'll see that. You can always hold it up to the light, give it a little bit of a sheen to make sure that everything's covered. Now I've got my pieces of paper already cut, and you see I'm using a really thick piece of foam core there, and that piece of foam core I'm using as a registration tool. Registration tool means that I'm using it to make sure that my block, my print, falls on the same spot on the page every time. In this one, the outside of my registration tool, that foam core, is the size of my paper, and that inside hole you saw cut out was the size of my block. So I've removed that tool, flipped it over, and I'm making sure that the paper doesn't move at all at this point. So moving everything at the same time if I have to. And I'm going to take what's called a baron, and a baron just provides even pressure as we kind of press through the back of the paper to that print, which pulls all the ink off of the block and puts it right onto the paper. You see that? There we go, and then we end up with our first color. Now, it's really important when you're doing reductive block printing to create many of this first run of prints, because you can't ever go back once you start carving again. So I created maybe 30 of those prints of just that yellow. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to take that same block and carve away. Now I'm going to draw all the things that I want to carve away, and anything I carve away for the next print won't print. So if I want a darker orange, which I'm going to go with, I want to carve away anything else that's not going to be dark orange. Now notice there's some overlap, right? Some orange is going to go right over top of the yellow, which is why you always want to go from the lightest color to the darkest color. Now I'm using a bench hook. That black piece of metal right there presses up against the bench and allows me to press my block against it instead of holding it with my hand and carving into my hand. Now I've got some high detail there. You can use multiple heads on some of these tools. The chisels have replaceable heads in some cases, or you can buy sets of tools that have more of a flat head and more of a fine tip, and you can use those. And that allows me to carve some high detail. And once I'm finished carving, I'm going to do the same thing. I take a little darker orange, yellow, and I'm going to ink it up using my brayer and lay a nice even pad of ink on the surface there. Check and make sure I've got everything covered in ink. All right, then I bring out my previous run of prints, which already has my first color on there. And then using my registration tool, I line it up with the page. Of course, make sure my hands are clean. Line it up with the page, and then I can insert that block right in there. And it should fall in the same spot as the previous block, allowing the color, the darker orange, to fall exactly where I want it and line up with the previous print. Now flip it over again. Same thing, making sure that nothing moves. I'm going to use my baron and press along the back, pulling all the ink from the block to the print itself. And I'll pull that off. And there we go. We have our second color placed right on top of the first color. And you see all of the edges line up. It doesn't look like one color is offset from the other. Then we do a series of prints there and we go back to carving. So now I'm going to carve away anything else that I don't want to print. My final color is going to be black. You see my block that I've got left has got a lot less on there. As it inks up, you'll see what remains. And I make sure to wipe off any excess. Sometimes excess builds up along the edges of your block. Just take a rag, wipe that off. You don't want that to print. So we're going to insert that block in again, remove our registration tool, flip the whole thing over, and once again, with our baron, we can print. And now that Baron can be anything with kind of a smooth back, like a wooden spoon. You can also use printing presses. You can use your feet, just stand on it. There's multiple ways to do this. You're really just trying to create some even pressure. So if you've got some things around the house that work, that's fine. And there we've got our final color. We'll drop that on the top. And this is our final print. Now, I didn't end up with 30 full prints. Of course, as I went along, there were mistakes made. And my final run of prints is around 18. That's my video today, so thanks so much for watching. I hope that was helpful. Of course, check out Waldo's & Company. We're on Facebook. We put out a lot of events. We're on Instagram. You can see some of the things we're doing here. Hope you keep in touch. I'm Chris Lauer. That's Reductive Block Printing.